Ms. Incapea, let me ask you a question. I believe you've said that you believe the President's actions are lawful. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And it's because he has discretion, prosecutorial discretion. Some people have asked that he had said in the past about some set of facts or laws that he didn't have this authority and he changed his opinion, and you gave a reason for that. But let me, and I don't recall, I don't know if anybody here does, what were the facts upon which, when the President said he didn't have the authority, were they the same limited situation as he's got going now, where he's just doing deferred prosecution? Was the other responses to people that wanted to get a fast track to citizenship and some other things that are not part of this program?
So that's a very good question, Congressman. What the President was responding to was basically demands from the immigrant rights community, from grassroots organizations, and from immigrants themselves to stop all deportations. And that was a consistent demand, which he often said, no, I cannot do that. And then the second piece, which I tried to explain in my testimony earlier, the context, the timing of when the President was making those comments was always because he was specifically focused on getting comprehensive immigration reform done through legislation. Now, I should share, on March 14th of earlier this year, I sat across from the President and specifically talked to him about the need for him to exercise his legal authority. And even there he said, I agree, but I'm focused on immigration reform, and all of you immigrant advocates also need to be focused on immigration reform. And he disagreed with the extent of authority that we believe he has, and one of those examples is parents of DACA or workers. We believe at the National Immigration Law Center that workers who have been here for over 5 years, who meet certain criteria, should potentially be eligible. So this administration has decided, by consulting the Office of Legal Counsel, to take a much more conservative approach about what kind of discretion they're willing to take on, and also have set forth the specific enforcement priorities.
And Mr. Sekulow, you agree that, well, first let me finish up with Ms. Incapea. The foundation upon which the President acted that you believe is constitutional is the same foundation that President Reagan and President George Herbert Walker Bush acted upon. Is that correct?
Absolutely. They have all, every administration, Republican and Democrat, including Presidents Reagan and President Bush Sr., used prosecutorial discretion to provide, at the time it was voluntary departure, and here it's the same thing, it's deferred action. It's simply a different type of prosecutorial discretion, a different type of deferred action.
And thank you. Mr. Sekulow, you said you agreed that, and maybe differed a little bit in degree, but that President Bush and Reagan, and you threw in Clinton and maybe Bush II, that they also were wrong, and that four wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah, and I basically, what I said was constitutional violations don't get better with time. And I don't see an underlying, this is my view, I don't see an underlying statutory base. You can be sympathetic with what they were trying to do, as I am with the President. But that doesn't mean there's a constitutional base on which to do it. So,
well, let me ask you this, and I know you're not a politician, but why is it that all those other four instances, nobody came out and questioned the President's authority from either side, and nobody came out and filed a lawsuit, and nobody even suggested a possibility of impeaching Presidents Bush, Reagan, Clinton? They did get to Clinton for whatever else, but and Bush. Why? What's the difference? Why is this President, well, they say at Passover, different from all other presidents?
I think, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think, Congressman, you answered it. There is a political element to it, and it's the sheer numbers and scope of what we're dealing with. You're dealing with 5 million people. And, you know, when you ask about the question, which I think was a good one, about was the President talking about deportations or was he talking about something else? That's a good question. But let me read you the exact quote. He was at a speech. He was giving the speech. He had hecklers, much like we saw today, that were concerned about this, and they were saying, stop the deportations. And the President said, now, you're absolutely right that there have been significant numbers of deportation. That's true. But what you are not paying attention to is the fact that I just took an action to change the law. So the President views what he did, even though the OLC doesn't say that, but the President viewed it as stopping deportations. And he said he took action to change the law. So I don't think what any of these Presidents have done is more than constitutional framework. That's in my view.
Ms. Incapea, do you believe, and you're not a politician either, that the reason why the response to this has been so different under this President, do you believe it's just because of the number, or do you believe that there's some other reason that makes this President different from all other Presidents?
I would have to say that I do believe this is different. He is the first African-American president. He is being attacked for a number of issues, and historically, every single president, Republican and Democrat, since Eisenhower has used their prosecutorial discretion and used their executive authority. I would also add that when Bush Sr. exercised that prosecutorial discretion, they too believed that they were going to be covering about 40% of the undocumented population at the time, and it was after Congress expressly said that they were not going to cover the children and spouses of immigrants who were legalized under IRCA. There was late Senator Chafee had an amendment that was expressly denied and defeated that would have done what President Bush decided to do anyway.
Thank each of you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chair recognizes Congressman